We'll call the meeting to order. I'd entertain a motion to approve the minutes of August 9th.
So moved.
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Is Kathy, or Katie?
I don't know how we would, how we're gonna get her. She could do it in the chat room.
She should be able to go by the microphone. We'll go with 4-0 for now, and if we get in touch with her.
She can't hear anything on Zoom.
Okay. And let's see. Okay.
Can we just check and see if it's working?
Yeah, it was the mic was on the wrong setting. It should be working now.
Okay. Katie, can you hear?
She doesn't have a microphone.
Okay. We'll just move forward. All right. We have an addition since the warning was published to new business town hall requests. It'll go the end of the list tonight. We also have some members of the public, Grace Cottage Hospital, for an update on their ER. We have Charlie for the Stone Arch Bridge. And I'm sorry, Orrin, what's your last name?
Styles.
Styles?
Yeah.
Orrin Styles for an issue on East Hill. And Bob DeSiervo representing the Planning Commission, and I see John Evans back there as well. All right, so Grace Cottage, there you are. Let's go right ahead.
Perfect, thank you. I'm going to give out some handouts here so you can follow our material. My name is Bob DeSiervo. I'm president and CEO of the hospital. Nice to meet you tonight.
Well done. How you doing?
Good, how you doing?
Good, thank you.
All right, we brought some extra copies. You have them on me tonight. So we want to give you an update on a project that is really important to our organization. First, has anybody here had an opportunity to experience the emergency room at Grace Cottage?
Yes.
Yeah.
Good, it's good. So you'll know exactly, as I'm talking to you, you'll be like, I remember that. So if you look at the handout, page 2 of the handout that I gave you shows the current layout of the emergency room as it exists today. And so when you walk into the ER at Grace Cottage, you'll see there's one vestibule entrance for all the traffic. So if you're a drive-up member of the public and you park your car and walk in, you walk into that vestibule. If you're coming by ambulance, which is a sizable portion of our patients come by ambulance, the ambulance parks across the parking lot from the entrance, the vestibule entrance. And then the patients are put on a stretcher coming out of the ambulance, and they're actually wheeled across the parking lot and they come into that vestibule entrance as well. So you've got mixed patients coming through the ER, coming through the same entrance. So you could have somebody walking in while simultaneously you could have somebody coming in on a stretcher who needs that immediate emergency attention.
Plus, that's your weekend access to visit.
And that's the weekend access to visit, exactly right. So it's a real pinch point coming into the hospital. But more importantly, it's a real safety issue when you have walk-in patients who may have a bee sting or a tick or something like that, or sprained wrist coming in when you have an ambulance bringing somebody in on a gurney who may be having difficulty breathing, may be in arrhythmia, and may be in real extreme situations. So we want to try and separate those patients in a new iteration of what we're designing. So that's problem number one. Problem number two is waiting and families. So right now, if you're coming in with a patient And the patient is handed off to our nurses and providers, and they end up going to triage into a treatment room. Oftentimes the patient's family members will have to wait for care to be rendered. And right now we have a very small waiting room at Grace Cottage. And it's interior to the hospital. So you have to walk through the ER into the inpatient unit where we have inpatient beds and rooms. And the waiting room is actually beyond the ER itself. So again, you've got patients, families who are going into the parts of the hospital that they really don't need to be in. It's not good to mix public traffic with patients who are in beds being taken care of by the nurses and by the hospitals. So the ER waiting room is too small and it's in the wrong place. So those are two real issues that need to be corrected. And then lastly, the providers, the ER physicians and providers who take care of the patients, their office is in the wrong place. So when they're sitting and charting between patients, or if they have to go on the computer to check a medication data, or they got to go to the patient's medical record to see what their primary care provider has been treating them for before they actually begin to diagnose and assess the situation that needs taken care of. They need to have a place to work that keeps them close by so the nurses have direct access to them, and ultimately so they have visibility to particularly the trauma bay, but most importantly to both of our treatment areas. One is a 2-bed emergency room treatment area, and one is a 1-bed trauma bay. And the office that they currently work in is too small and it's in the wrong location. So in order for them to see what's going on with the patients, they have to get up and walk out of their office and go back to their office, walk out of their office, go back to their office. So that's another problem we want to fix. And then finally, when patients come in, the first thing that has to happen is they need to be, there needs to be an intake process. So they need to be met by a staff member. They need to be quickly triaged. Like, why are you here today? What can we do for you? Find out what's going on with the patient. I feel like there's a weight on my chest, or I was bitten by a tick, and I think the tick is on the nose. Whatever the situation is, the nurses will do a quick assessment, and then they'll determine, how the patient it fits from a severity standpoint, from an acuity standpoint, and they'll be able to make determinations as to is there an open bay that we can bring the patient right in if it's a slow period and there's open access. If we've got more than one patient, which patients are the sickest and need to be seen first, second, third. So and if you've been to Grace Cottage, even if you're second or third, you don't wait very long for care at Grace Cottage, which is really wonderful. And I think one of the things that makes our ER such a great place for care. So we want to address the issue of the intake and triage process so that when the patients come in, they're met by a nurse in a convenient and private, most importantly, in a private way, so that they can actually talk to the nurse about why they're there. They can do it so that no one else is listening to their situation and their personal information. And if they're coming in by stretcher, by ambulance, we want there to be a handoff point, essentially a vestibule, where the ambulance drivers, the EMTs, can do a handoff with the nurses, and if a provider needs to be there too, the provider can meet with the patient's transporter as well, so we can make a quick determination and get started on their care plan right away. And we want to keep those patients, as I said earlier, separate, the walk-ins separate from the ambulance patients. So we've come up with a really creative solution to solving all these problems. It's going to require an investment of about $450,000 altogether, which is not all that expensive in the grand scheme of things. In fact, Andrew's going to talk about funding and how we're going to pay for it, but we're well on our way to pay for it. And I'll show you on the third page of the handout, you'll see the new iteration of what the new ED will look like when they're done. We're actually going to bump the building out into the parking lot. We're going to create about 714 additional square feet within the emergency room. It's actually going to be a 27 by 42 foot addition to the front of the emergency room as it currently exists. There'll be a separate backup and entry point for ambulances, so patients coming off of ambulances will be under a covered entryway. They won't have to be exposed to the weather, which they are now. So if it's raining or snowing, and they're coming off the ambulance, they have to be brought across the parking lot, and they're exposed to weather, which is not a great scenario. And there'll be a separate entrance for walk-in patients, who will then, as soon as they enter the building, they'll be greeted by an intake person, and they'll be able to register quickly and efficiently. So if you look at that last page in the handout, you'll see the two separate entrances that will be created. One to the upper right-hand side, that will be the ambulance entrance. So there'll be a backup there for the ambulance vehicles to come right up to the building. There'll be an overhang there, so the ambulances are out of the weather and under a covered entryway. They will then come into that EMS vestibule, which has two separate doors, one into the vestibule, one into the ED staff area, which is just beyond the entrance. And you can see to the north of that, there's a walk-in patient entrance, which is a separate door for the patients to walk in. And you can see there's some privacy for the walk-in patients. They'll check in right there at the window. There'll be an intake person meeting them as soon as they arrive. And then, so if the walk-in patients need to be triaged by a nurse, the ED staff is right behind the registration staff. They have their own ED office, ED staff office. And right behind the ED staff office is the triage exam room. So if they need to be triaged in a private setting, if they need to disrobe as part of the triage process, they can do that privately out of eye shot, near shot of anybody else, which is a tremendous improvement over the existing layout. The existing layout, you walk in and you're essentially in a vestibule hallway area, which has access to everybody who's circulating through the emergency room. When I used the ED a few months ago, I brought my wife in for a problem. I had a chance to be, a secret shopper. Well, I wasn't secret once I got there, but anyway, it gave me a chance to experience what the patients experienced. And we sat in chairs in that vestibule area in front of the window, and my wife was talking to a nurse through the glass partition, and she was, telling the nurse what her healthcare issues were and her demographic information, her age, her address, her insurance. I mean, stuff that most people like to keep private, if at all possible. And we felt like we were right in the open. And then another patient walked in behind us, and they're standing right behind us, and we're sitting in chairs, and they're literally looking over our shoulder as we're talking to the intake nurse. This does away with all of that and creates privacy from the time they arrive to the time they're taken care of. So big improvement in not only patient traffic and flow, but also privacy. And then the waiting room, you can see, is also right off of the new check-in area. So if family members are with the patient can then be brought back to the treatment area. The family members can be shown to a seat in the waiting room, and the visitors who are in the waiting room will have access to a bathroom, which they don't have now. So our tiny little waiting room we have today does not have convenient access to a bathroom, which is a big problem for anybody who's visiting, especially if you're going to be waiting for 45 minutes or an hour for your loved one to get the care. The provider office is also relocated so that there's an entrance from the provider office right into the trauma room, and that'll have direct visibility to the patients in the trauma area. And those are the sickest patients, the ones that are in trauma. They're the ones that need the most visibility and the most observation by the nurses and the doctors. This is going to give them direct observation from the providers in the provider office, which makes them much more efficient, and they can do double duty and multitask while taking care of the patients and making sure that things are going the way it's supposed to go. The rest of the layout is essentially the same. So storage, oxygen, suction pumps, those areas are existing today. They won't be touched. The trauma and ED treatment, 2-bed treatment room are both staying the same. They're not changing. We also have a safe room here in our facility. We've been seeing a significant increase in the number of patients with mental health problems and who need mental health care. So we have a safe room for those patients while we're diagnosing and treating them and getting them the continuity that they need. And that creates some safety issues and some safety concerns for Grace Cottage as well. And so having an ED staff room that's dedicated and right behind registration, during the off hours, we'll be able to have our after-hours security guard right in the front of the emergency room where the patients come in, right where the action is, right where the entrance to the facility is. Right now, they have no place to essentially have a presence after hours, so they have to kind of walk around. They just walk around, and so I don't want them walking around. I want them to be at the entrance, because if anything happens, that's where it's going to happen, right at the front door, right after hours. And we monitor and triage people, and we have a locked door, so we don't let people in if there's a safety issue that we have concerns about. But having a security guard right there will make after hours safety for our patients and our employees much more will be much better addressed with this facility. So we really think this checks all the boxes for us in terms of bringing our ED up to modern standards, much like full service hospitals with larger facilities, larger emergency rooms. We've got, I think, just about a little bit of everything that you would expect to see in a bigger ED, but in a smaller package, in a Grace Cottage size package. We think there's a lot to be gained here for the money we're planning to spend. And I just want to turn it over to Andrea to talk a little bit about our funding, because we're well on our way to having this paid for.
I'm Andrea Seaton, Director of Development, Marketing, and Community Relations at Grace Cottage. And this has been a very exciting project to fundraise for, because the community is voting with their dollars that they really believe in this. So at the most recent Fair Day on August 6th, when we were raising money for the ER, we were able to raise $105,500, which is an all-time record. Thanks to Connie. There were so many people who, we had almost 200 volunteers giving almost 2,500 hours of volunteer work to make Fair Day the success that it was. Our prior record was $75,000, so the increase to $105,000 is enormous. After Fair Day expenses, which include tents and trash and things like that, we expect to have at least $80,000 to give to this ER project. So we've been fundraising for this for a while, because we've known that we've needed to do this for a while. So we've been doing events like Giving Tuesday and Fair Day and our golf tournament. And we've also been soliciting donations from individuals and private family foundations. So one of the reasons that we're here is that not just to inform you of the project, and we've applied for the Act 250 permit, and we're waiting to hear back on that, which should be any day. We're also we're hopeful that you'll agree to, as the Townshend Selectboard, give us a letter of support for a grant that we're applying to for it's the Vermont Buildings and General Services Human Services Grant Program. It's about a $10,000 grant. It's not a huge one, but every penny adds up when you're doing a project of this size. So at the moment, or the total that we've raised or anticipated to be raised based on pledges that we've received is $422,000. So we're almost there. The project will probably be a little more than we had originally anticipated, because of the price of building materials going up and labor is so hard to find. Yep, so we know that, and we're ready to ask other individual donors that we know of who would support the project. We have one man who we saved his life 5 years ago. His wife brought him down to Grace Cottage, and he's gone public with this story. He's talked about it a great deal. One of our ER doctors worked on him for 24 minutes after he'd had a heart issue, and was able to revive him and got him up to Dartmouth Hitchcock by ambulance, where they were waiting to do surgery. And about a month after this happened, he walked into my office with a check for $10,000 and said, every single August 17th that I'm still alive, I'll give you another $10,000. So he's been doing that for 5 years now, and all of his donations go to the ER. And he said two of the things that made a huge difference for him. One was that our chief nursing officer ran out into the parking lot after the ambulance had left, and this man's wife had been with him the whole time, and our chief nursing officer said, you cannot drive up to Dartmouth Hitchcock in the state that you're in now. I want you to have a sandwich and a glass of lemonade, and then you can go. And what other hospital would do that? And the other thing was, well, when the man came into my office with the donation, I said, would you like to meet the doctor who saved your life? And he said, yes, because I don't remember a thing about that day. And so I called her, she was working that day, and she came over to my office, and she burst into tears when she saw him, because she said, I never ever thought I'd see you alive, let alone having full brain and physical function. But Dartmouth Hitchcock said that she had done everything right. She had packed ice around his head to keep his metabolism of his brain down. These are things I know nothing about, but she was telling him all about it. And his wife said, I was watching everything going on in that room, and it was like a well-orchestrated ballet. And the doctor said, you didn't hear me swear under my breath? She said, absolutely not. It was absolutely perfect, like clockwork. So that's why we're there. That's why our ER volume is increasing tremendously. We're not making a bigger ER, we're making a better ER so that we can be more efficient.
So we really have to, we've been running between 50 and 80% above our forecasted budget for this year in ED visits. So, I mean, that's a dramatic increase over what we have been normally seeing and forecasting. In the month of August, we're about two-thirds of the way through the month of August, and we're already 100 visits, ED visits, above budget for the month alone. And so we really need to make sure we're maximizing efficiency. This is going to help us do that. And we're also adding technology to our ED operation as well. We've introduced telemedicine services in collaboration with Dartmouth Hitchcock. They have a camera and monitor system in our emergency room, and with the push of a button, we can access their emergency medicine telemedicine team in New Hampshire. They come on the screen, nurses and providers, and they can actually work collaboratively with our providers in taking care of the patient. And we did a test last week, and we had them on the screen, and this camera is amazing. And we said, can you see everything in the room? Is everything clear? And they said, yeah, we can actually zoom in and see the lettering on the buttons on your shirt. Wow. We can see if you're wearing an LL Bean or a Land's End shirt, because we can see the letters on your buttons. That's the kind of technology we're dealing with now. So I think, again, we're trying to up our game. We want to make sure everybody in Vermont, Southern Vermont, Townshend, and all the communities we serve get the very best emergency care possible. So,
and the night after we got the tele-emergency service,
they used it, and they saved the patient's life with it. The very first time we had it.
Yeah.
A couple of questions.
Yeah, sure.
Having been a patient in the ED and gotten great care, I'm happy to hear you're improving things. We're 2.5 years into COVID, and I don't see a respiratory isolation, I don't think, and it looks like triage is in the center of an open area, so I'm just wondering how you're addressing airborne pathogens.
Yeah, that's great. So all of our treatment rooms in the emergency room are negative pressure now. So we've actually installed negative pressure capability and
So the ventilation's improved.
So the ventilation's been changed.
Excellent.
Yes. We also have a ventilation-controlled treatment space in our clinic as well. So if you come into the respiratory clinic and you're coughing and you've got a fever and they bring you in, obviously you'll be wearing a mask, they'll be wearing masks. They'll do a quick test or a rapid test, and if you test positive for COVID, you're taken care of in a separate area, isolated from other patients without COVID. So, and we're still doing that today, believe it or not. Even though it kind of feels like people have already just forget about COVID-19 and move on, we can't forget about it. And our staff still wear masks every day. All of our treatment areas, the employees all wear masks. And we're very, very careful about isolation and about doing the assessment of people coming into the building. We still have limitations on visitation for our patients to keep traffic minimized whenever possible. We'd love to go back to the pre-COVID days. I don't know if we ever will, but should we just take it one day at a time and keep following the science? That's all we can do.
I think we need to anticipate that it's going to happen again at some point in time.
I'm afraid it probably will.
Yeah.
And a lot of things we've implemented during COVID, we're never going to reverse. I mean, those things are now permanent. The ventilation changes we've made, those are permanent changes. We'll never go back to that stuff. Whether we'll ever take our masks off, I don't know. I think everybody's kind of used to wearing them now. So I think we're beyond the mask anxiety days.
So the safe room is also for patients who may have a psychiatric, violent type of, okay.
Correct.
And you've got just non-work hour security, or how does that work?
We have after-hour security, that right now that's when our biggest vulnerability is when we have less employees in the building, less staff members. During the day, when we have all of our staff, we have a code process where we can call a code if there's violence in the ED, and our security, our maintenance gentlemen show up. They're big, strong guys. Our IT guys, they're big, strong guys. They show up. I make a beeline down there, although I'm not very big and strong. I can look intimidating if I need to be. So there's more hands on deck during the day. It's after hours when we have less people there. And we want to make sure we have a security presence, and so we have a security guard that we purchase through an agency that's there every night.
Okay. Does any of the board have any questions for?
I have one question.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
Anticipated disruption in service during construction.
Yeah, so we've been in discussion with the contractor who's going to be doing this job and with our maintenance crew. They've already mapped out a phased renovation plan for the emergency room. So what they're going to do is they're going to build the new space before the winter comes, when they can get access to, when having access to the weather is less of a problem. We want to get that done before the winter months. And once that's buttoned up and enclosed, they can then go in. They can renovate the space that needs to be renovated. That's new renovation space, and then they can phase that in with the existing space, and they'll move functions around for a month or two while that's being done.
Good.
Anything, Rob?
Oh.
Katie, do you have anything? Any questions? Okay. All set?
That's great.
All right.
Thank you.
Good, thank you.
As far as your request for a letter, give all that stuff to Connie so that the board can get a chance to read it outside of right here. And we'll put it on the agenda next week or next time. And then we'll...
I can draft a letter if you'd like, so,
Yeah, that'd be nice.
Okay.
Really appreciate
That'd be great. Thank you very,
Thank you.
very much.
Thanks for letting us
And
come
we'll
up.
be
Did
back
you have
to-
anything else, Steve?
No, good.
Okay.
Congratulations on Fair Day.
Yeah,
Thank you.
It's awesome. It's wonderful.
Yeah.
It's really wonderful.
You thanked Connie. I thought maybe she was the one that bought the truck.
Right.
Somebody in Grafton now owns the truck, so you see it driving around here in Grafton. And somebody has let us know that they'll give us their 1940 truck, 40 or 41, I think it's 40.
For next year.
For next year, yeah, and it's a great Chevy truck in great condition also. So we're all set for another great Fair Day in 2023. So Grace Cottage is very grateful for all the support we get from the community, including the Selectboard. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Take care now. Have a good night.
Thank you, you too.
Charlie. How are you tonight?
I'm good, I guess, right?
Let's discuss Stone Arch Bridge
Okay.
and where we're at.
I think Connie has prepared you a package for tonight. And you probably already know that, I think we've talked about this before, we received this congressional funding, and now we're in the process of setting all that up. And the money was from a grant request that we made through Senator Sanders, and it's been passed on to be administered by the National Park Service Department of Interior, which makes sense because we're dealing with a historic structure. It now has a title. It's Save America's Treasures Grant, which the bridges qualify for. And it's a large grant. It's matching. We have the match on hand now. We are now working with the representative of the National Park Service, and also the State Historic Preservation Officer in the state of Vermont. And there's a meeting scheduled on September 6th to go over the process, or more of the process, to get this lined up. What the town is being asked to do, and it's a requirement to have the project go forward, is to give a letter of consent, that because the town owns the bridge. The Historical Society applied for the grant and received it, but we don't own the bridge, the town owns it. I believe Connie's given you a sample of what that might look like. We thought there might be a boilerplate one, but there isn't, because these bridges are unique. So the letter of consent has to be drawn up by us. I'm sure if they don't like the format, they'll tell us. But the earliest deadline that we have to meet in this process is that letter of consent has to be in by the September 20th. We also have to deal with this easement covenant. And really the basics of that are that the town's agreeing to maintain the bridge after the project is done for up to 10 years. Well, this seems pretty obvious to me. The bridge is a highway bridge. It's been maintained by the town for over 100 years. It seems that that's not really a big deal. And that, do you know the deadline for that? That's not the 20th.
By the end of the project.
Yeah, okay, right. So that part really doesn't have to be completed until the project is completed. We're not gonna recommend that.
Is that one, Charlie, the one that we're gonna need legal involved in it? The first one is just what we boil out of it, or what we come out of it, and saying that we're going to be involved in the project.
Right.
The easement is the one that we're gonna need attorney contact with, correct?
Well,
Or are we gonna need that in this?
I think there's a draft of that too. I don't think we have to worry about that until the project's done.
Okay.
So there's time to look it over. When we received this grant, we were kind of worried that, we'd have a year, a federal year to do the project, and we don't. We have till September 30th of 2025. So there's time to put these things together. We're not going forward with this project, and you're not going to either, unless we have all the funds necessary to complete it. And so with that in mind, we're in the process of seeking additional funds. We don't have the total budget at this time. That's no big secret. We're in the process of explaining to different people this process and how it works, and to see if they are willing to help us. And when we met with Sherwood and Connie to just go over the steps here. We hope that the town will pursue options that it might have for projects like this. Since it's part of the town's infrastructure, it's not eye candy. It's part of our everyday use, really. I know the price has gone up, just like the hospital people were saying. We've been working on this now for 3 years or more, and the price of stuff has gone up. The other thing, in the original budget, they now realize they have to have a scaffolding under the bridge to support the arch. There's some concern that once you remove all this material, then the arch is just sitting there. So they are going to build a scaffolding under the arch to support it, and then we've already mentioned, this project has to be done all at once. We asked about stages, and the answer to that is no. And in the plan of work, there's going to be basically 4 crews, 2 on each side, on the corners, removing the material simultaneously. It's an unsupported arch. It has no cement in it. So when you take everything away, it's going to be sitting there. So then they rebuild it and put the whatever surface they're going to put on, and then the town has to consider the road surface, which never was part of the project. That has to be dealt with, and the parapets on the sides, that also wasn't part of the original project. And the ones that are there now are, if you look at them, they're not in very good shape. And anyway, that'll have to be done, but none of that can be done until the spandrels are rebuilt and that's where we're at.
So what you need from us is this letter, that we're involved, that we're going to be involved in the project. The first thing is due on the 20th.
Right.
And we have to appoint 2.
Oh, yeah. There's a management team. I'm only familiar with this after the Irene thing. I was on an inspection team representing the Selectboard to go look at, I think it was the area behind Leland and Gray, and then the cemetery over on the State Forest Road. And there was there was a team, and you had assignments to go out and look at stuff, and so this is similar. There's a team that looks at the project and I guess approves the bills that come in. This money is pass-through money, so it's you spend it and then you get reimbursed. But that's fairly similar to programs that we've been involved in before, and so that you have to cross the T's and dot the I's to get the money. Once since we already have the match, Lee put together a potential budget of where this money would be spent, and that should be in your package as well, so that we spend that and basically get done with it. And then after that, finish the project and then do that easement when the project is complete. The thing that we need to find out on the 6th, and I've done some exploration on this a little bit, is how is this project actually put out to bids? Because it is, the bridges are historic, you don't have to play by the same rules they do as you're doing other projects. But I've talked with the people at the Stone Trust, and they're willing to help us. They have a template that they're willing to share with the town for how these things are done. And of course, they have a list of people that would be qualified to do this kind of work. And they're willing to share that list. So after we have this meeting on the 6th, I think we'll know better how that process goes and who we should contact, and then proceed to come up with the rest of the money.
Okay.
And this letter of support or consent doesn't obligate the town to any additional funds that it's already voted on at the town meeting. It's just allowing the process to go forward, and it's a requirement. If we don't, if it's not agreed on, then, well, it has to be agreed on sometime.
Does anybody have any questions for Charlie about this?
Not yet, no.
No?
I've got a question as far as if and when the select board signs this, are we on the hook for making up the difference?
No,
Okay, got it.
you're just agreeing, what you're agreeing to is to follow the procedures for fixing this bridge the way they're presented in the proposal.
Got it.
And we're giving them permission to do.
Yeah, because the town owns the bridge. And when we restored the one by the state park, that was done, the select board relinquished that power to the historical society, but in that case, it wasn't a highway bridge. And you can't do that with this one, because you own it, we own it, the townspeople, it's being used as opposed to the other bridge is more like a museum piece,
It's a footbridge, right?
yeah, it's owned by the town, but it's not, it doesn't come under the same road thing. There's no road going over it, it's just a footpath. Where this one has a highway number, a bridge number. By the way, what is the bridge number of that bridge?
34.
34, okay, that's,
Katie, did you have any questions on this?
No, I just, can you hear me?
Yep, loud and clear.
Great. I just wanted to bring up to the rest of the board that I'm the pro temp secretary for the Townshend Historical Society, and I'm not on their board, but I do take their minutes. I don't have anything to do with them trying to acquire this grant, but I take their minutes, so just in case anybody, if we're to vote on anything, if anyone else on our board had an issue with me voting on that, I'm happy to abstain from the vote.
Okay.
Just wanted to say that.
Do you have birds?
Somebody does.
Somebody does. Okay. Okay, so if there's no other questions, I'd entertain a motion to support the project for this first stage.
Second.
Is there any other discussion? I'll bring it up in discussion. Does anybody have a problem with Katie placing her vote?
No.
Okay. All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay,
Aye.
thank you. Kate? Are you in favor? There she goes. 5-0. All right, so I'll be on the call on the,
the 6th?
it says the 7th on here, but the 6th.
It said the 7th. Lee said it was the 7th
It's the 2nd.
at 10 a.m.
Okay, 10 a.m. I got 10 a.m. now, I'm sorry about
And
that.
are we appointing or deciding who?
Let's listen to this.
Or wait.
Yeah, let's figure out what we've got to do first, and then we'll do that. One of the things that they want is an appointed 2 people from the select board to be part of this administration group. Suggestion has been Steve be one of them. There's a lot of information that's going to come across. Rob, Katie, you're welcome to be a part of that. I'm not sure how comfortable you would be with those decisions right now. And I know you're busy, so. But if you're interested, Rob, we'll bring it up after this September meeting and once we know what's going on. Okay, thanks, Charlie. Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay. Next one, Warren. What do you have for, first of all, if you could just state your name for the record and for the camera there.
Warren Stiles.
And what are you here for?
I'm asking to plow East Hill all the way through. It stops, you guys plow right to Holt's, and then you plow from the bottom up to the last house and turn around. So there's probably 3/4 of a mile that you guys don't plow during the winter, and I'd like to see if maybe we can start plowing it now.
Okay, Steve?
It's up to the board, and all it is to us is it's more material, it's more sand. Time-wise, it really doesn't matter. We got to turn around instead of driving through.
Warren, here's the problem.
Yeah.
Our sanding just to pad the stuff in the shack has doubled this year. So, yes, it's only 3/4 of a mile, but how many coats has to go past that 3/4 of a mile when we're kind of rationing it? So it isn't gonna happen this year
Well,
unless.
what about the grant money? You guys got to rebuild that road twice for emergency purposes, and then you just,
It's all spent.
but then it's to keep the road open for emergency purposes, and then you guys are even doing more ditching on the road that's gonna be closed in the wintertime.
That's required. That's required by the state. And the
So-
state's paying for it,
The state's paying for
the
it.
state's paying for it. This just comes down to economics.
But you guys didn't even vote on it, you just said no.
I'm telling you what my opinion is of it, okay? We don't have the extra material. We'll bring it to a vote. You'll see here the vote. I'm just telling you that it's gonna cost us a certain amount of money over that to maintain 3/4 of a mile. If we'd have heard about this last November when we were working the budget, well, we might have been able to build something into it. The problem with the budget is it is extraordinarily tight. And we have to weigh every single thing that comes in and out. Budget season will start here in October, and we can certainly discuss it if you come back to one of the budget meetings and ask for it. That's what, that's only my opinion. I'll let these guys say what they think.
I'd be curious to hear the dollar amounts of what it would mean.
Well, it doubled, remember, last meeting, we voted, and it cost us almost double for the sand,
Right.
so.
So double the
So
cost of 3/4 mile.
I can't predict what the winter's gonna be like, so.
Yeah.
Rob?
I'm kind of up in the air with it, where it's one of the hardest spots in the town to get up and down, and then you open it up for the winter time. And I see there's positives and negatives to it, so I don't know.
Well, not to interrupt anybody, but it's like I at least get a dozen people a year that come to my house that try to get me to pull them out. Because then Scott Brooks plows down to get the people out, and then they think the road's open, and they get stuck further down. And then, oh, can you come pull me out with your skidder? Can you come pull me out with your excavator? And it's like, no, I'm not a recovery service. So this is gonna kill, take care of that problem too.
Is it gonna take care of the problem though, or is
Yeah, but
it
you gotta
gonna?
figure,
you're
so you
gonna
guys
have-
are already plowing the steepest, narrowest part of the road, which is the bottom part of the road. And then, so going down Peaked is just as steep as any part of the other road. And plus you got that really hairpin corner at the bottom that everybody goes off of. So what we're talking about, the part that's been rebuilt to state grade and everything, it's wide enough. So basically all we're really talking about, and then for even plowing, they're gonna be able to plow all the snow over the bank and then down, instead of trying to plow up the steepest, narrowest part, we're nowhere to put snow. So it's just basically, you're talking a matter of maybe 5 minutes for them to go down and come back up through. I mean, it's not like I'm asking for a mile of road, 2 miles of road. The last time we had trees go down and lost power, I didn't have power for 3 days. I couldn't get down Peaked because the trees were everywhere. All the trees were down by Top Notch Farm. So I rode my snowmobile up and down, and there wasn't a single tree down on that road. So it's like, we spent $100-something thousand last year rebuilding that whole section of road. And then not to mention the grant money for doing the stone line ditching and everything. And we can't plow it because we're gonna use a little bit of sand?
Well, I'll open the floor up to a motion, one way or the other.
Does anybody know why it hasn't been plowed historically?
Because it used to be really steep. The last time, not the last time, the time before it washed out, you can see where the road used to be. It used to go straight up like that and come down. So when they rebuilt it the second time or whatever, or the first time they rebuilt it, sorry, you can see they cut the grade so it comes all the way down and around because it had to meet a certain, for pitch for going up through from when they rebuilt it. It dropped down about probably 15 feet from what it was before. And that's why they never plowed it, because it was so steep. But that section, that was the steepest part, and it's not the steepest part anymore because they redid the whole road. And it's wider than any part of the whole road right through there too, because they built it, so.
Historically, I think we'd have to get a hold of Irv on that one. He'd have an answer.
We don't need to do that.
Well, as I see it, we have two options. We can put it to a motion now and vote, open vote on it. We can table it and get a chance to review what you think it's gonna cost to add it to it and see if we've got.
I mean,
See
once
if
if
we
you,
can-
like, another thing, if I go to everybody that lives on that road and get them to sign the petition to do it too, would that, like, put more water in it to make it go through, or?
The only thing you could do with the petition is get it before town meeting upstairs.
No, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, I'm one person of, there's probably, what, I think 6 people that live on that road, 6 different houses on East Hill Road,
Full time?
full time,
Okay.
so.
Well, like I said,
I'm not really ready to vote on it, only because the budget is so tight, and maybe there's things we're not even thinking of currently.
I mean, I can put a pencil to it and try to come up with a number for the next meeting, but we have to remember the budget was built on $16 a yard. The price went to $22.80. That's a $27,000 increase just in the price of sand, and we did not get the price of salt yet. So I would like to have a little bit more data so I can give you guys a number.
okay. Sound good to everybody else? All right, so we'll table it. It's not a yes, it's not a no,
Yeah.
but we'll look at it. You can come back
So
next
the next
meeting.
meeting?
Yeah, you can come back next meeting.
So when's the next meeting?
The 13th, I think, of September?
Yeah, September 13th. And we'll give you an answer.
Right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
All right. The last one we have under members of the public is Bob DeSiervo. Go ahead, Bob.
2 things. First, the planning commission suggests to the select board that the alarm system for the building be inspected, because when the fire marshal was here in July, he pointed out that it hadn't been inspected since 2018, and it's $500 per year fine. So we don't want to throw $2,000 out the window. Let's get that inspected. There's a bunch of other things that he talked about that we're not all clear on. So we're working on a report that we'll give you shortly, and try and address the ADA requirements that the building has in phases like you asked us to do. So that's in process.
No, I'll correct you on that, Bob. I didn't ask you to do it in phases. What I asked you to do is find the money to pay for it, period. That's all that we asked.
Actually,
And as far as I'm
phases, but we don't know where the money is.
from where we're sitting, the money ain't there. And unless somebody comes up with the money, it just isn't gonna happen.
Sure, but I understand what you just told me. And the fire marshal said, go onto the website to see how much is costing towns that are being sued to have the ADA requirements built in to their buildings. This is a law that's 30 years old. It should have been done a long time ago. So where the money comes from, I don't know. There were lots and lots of grants over that 30-year period to get the work done. There may be some grants available currently, we're not sure.
Did you ever think to look into them?
I'm sorry?
Did you think to look into them, the grants, and what are available?
We need to first find out from the fire marshal what exactly he's talking about. He's talking about a lot of things that look fine to some of us, and other things that there may not be a good solution for, or it might be very expensive. So we'll get something to you shortly. Second thing, I bought my property in 2000, and I traveled Dam Road on a regular basis. People are doing weird stuff on Dam Road. There was a center line on Dam Road at one time. You mentioned talking to Irvin. It was done during his time with the town doing that kind of work. So there was a center line. From my perspective, and I sent Steve the license. You guys should have seen that Steve circulated it to the select board, I'm sure. The Corps of Engineers owns the dam and the road, but the town is responsible for the maintenance, the signs, all the other stuff that the road requires. The liability from my perspective is if there's no line, people are doing weird stuff. They're in the center of the road, they're not moving over. I recently was going across the dam road. There's one truck in front of me. He gets to the bridge, there's another truck stopped there, so there's three of us backed up. There's a car coming off of Route 30 with the sunroof open, and they're taking pictures. They're not moving anywhere, they're just taking pictures. There's another car that comes off of Route 30, they're backed up. People don't seem to appreciate that people live here and that these are roads that everyone uses. We need to prepare it like it's a road that people use, address the liability of not having a center line. The Corps of Engineers points out that there are signs, and I don't know exactly what Alex's point was about the signs need to be addressed. The stop sign at the end of the bridge to Route 30, that appeared one day out of nowhere because there had been a yield sign there for years, and a yield, in my view, is maybe a better way of addressing it, because the sight line with a car coming at 60 miles an hour, it's a 50-mile-an-hour road, granted, but that's not what people travel at. At 60 miles an hour, you're going 88 feet a second. The sight line is probably 200 feet. Cars are on top of you, you come to a stop and you can't accelerate fast enough. But that might be another story. But the center line is the key thing. Irvin did it, I don't know if there's a history there, but the Corps of Engineers basically says it's the town's decision.
Is the center line gonna stop the people from taking the pictures, stopping, or mess with the stop sign, yield, or whatever? Because, I mean, I've traveled that road for years, and there's been a stop sign there for a long time.
It's been there a while, you're right, but it had been a yield sign for the longest time,
We didn't have stop signs a long time ago. It was all yield. I think my point is that it, you know, stop signs have been poking up on places that they weren't here before for a long time. That's a state thing, isn't it?
Well, I think you and I have probably passed one another on Dam Road and we did fine. But there are people that don't seem to be able to know how to use their mirrors. I'm telling you, there are people, and some of them even have small cars, and they're way over this. I don't know, from my perspective, it kind of happened after COVID. People hadn't been driving for a long time, and all of a sudden they're doing all kinds of really weird stuff. But that center line would really eliminate where exactly do I need to be. It's a simple enough thing to do. It was there at one time. It hasn't been there for a while, but I don't know if that was after the paving, we decided not to do it again.
Paying for it's the issue.
I'm sorry?
Paying for it's the issue. That's the main issue. Every one of these projects that comes up, money in the budget is not there. It's gone. It's all down to what we need to operate. So unless Steve has got something in paint somewhere that he can put it up there.
Well, we don't have a way of striping the road.
No,
It would
we'd have to hire it.
We'd have to hire it out. Connie, could you pull out last year's town report, the page that has funds? I believe there are some funds under fog line painting. No. No.
I'm in agreement with you on the people doing crazy stuff on the dam, because I drive on that a reasonable amount of time throughout the year. But you wanna know what? It's on every road, Bob. They're everywhere. It's gone awry. We have, you know, common sense seems to have left, and we have just pandemonium on the roadways. You know, whether it's people stopping, taking pictures, people walking, riding their bicycle. I mean, the other day there's a whole group of bicyclists on 35 and they were consuming the whole entire lane of road and didn't even care that there was vehicles trying to get by them. And it's like, you know, it's pandemonium everywhere. You know, you go down by Scott's Bridge, there's one day I'm going down through there, you can't even hardly get by because they're parked out in the road on both sides, walking in the road. I mean, the only thing you can do is put the pedal to the metal and hope to get out of the way.
Again, to my way of thinking, having driven that road as much as I have and having had the line there at one time and not having it there now, I think it would be much safer for all of us.
Well, safer, people use the skills that they learned in driver's ed.
Well, again, people who...
I mean, I've almost been run over or run off the road by your neighbor before on the dirt part where it's, you know, they're doing 50 miles an hour in an inferior vehicle for conditions and the other stuff. I mean,
It's a 35 mile an hour road. West Hill is a 35 mile an hour road. There are very few places that I drive that fast on West Hill. At the end of Barber Road, another place where there had been a yield sign, and suddenly a stop sign showed up one day. If you actually stop there, it's much more dangerous to stop because, again, the sight line is so short that if you come to a complete stop and then try to accelerate on dirt and someone's coming from the other direction, again, if you work the numbers on how fast people are going, what the average reaction time is, 3/4 to 1 second. Again, I don't know why that stop sign showed up there. It's much safer when there was a yield sign there. And those things are supposed to be done by survey, and I don't know, I remember asking at one time how those two stop signs showed up, and I never got a direct answer.
Anything else?
Not particularly.
Okay. Katie, do you have anything? She says no. Okay.
No.
Thank you. So we're going to look into the paint, whether or not we got money for it.
The first thing we'll do is look and see if we have money in a fund under fog line painting. The chances of me getting a truck out here this year is probably 0 because the state is doing so much paving that they're out working for the state. All of our class 2 roads have already been sprayed, so they've already been through town. The state is not going to pay to do Dam Road because it's not a town road.
Right.
So now I'm taking a contractor away from the state, putting it on the town's nickel and making arrangements to shoot the road. So I don't see it happening by this fall, if we have the funds. We don't pay to have the class 2 roads sprayed, the state pays for that.
And that's a class 2 road?
Dam Road? No. It's not, it's a 0 class, it's not a town road.
Yeah, you're right.
But all of our Grafton Road, Athens Road, Wyndham Hill are our class 2 roads. The state sprays them once a year. They pay for it, we don't.
Okay. We'll move on to warrants.
Make a motion to pay the warrants, starting with number 1 payroll, in the amount of $12,322.78. Number 2 payroll tax, the amount of $5,221.61. Number 3 general fund, in the amount of $6,002.49. Number 4 highway fund, in the amount of $10,594.66. For a total of $34,141.54.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
Any
Comments?
there you go, try that, we'll try that one. Any
Discussion.
any discussion, that's what I'm looking for. Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
5-0. All right, so on the budget, or excuse me, on the balance sheet for actual fund balance or true fund balance, we have $931,715 in the bank accounts for readily available. If you look at the bank sheet, we have $1,124,675.69 and the usual $30,000 in the checking account. And I don't believe we've got the first school payment yet.
No, 20 days after Friday.
The next one is the town clerk. Town clerk's statement here, $3,472.50 that she's put into the system from fees and services, for services. Let's see. I don't have anything to bring up separate from what we've already talked about. Stone Arch Bridge has been dealt with. Propane and oil contract, did we get a confirmation that we're locked in?
I sent them an email before 4 o'clock stating that we're taking that proposal.
Okay.
Have not heard back.
So what we've locked in is Dead River for both oil and propane for the garage at a rate of $3.99 basically for the year, which was, I want to say, at least 50 cents less a gallon than the closest competitor, and almost $1 on the gas. So
With a
that
3-year contract on the
that
gas.
the gas was 3 years, yeah. And this one's just for the year. All right. There is a letter in your packet. It is about a personnel issue. I don't think any discussion really needs to occur other than I'll give you a chance to read it if you haven't. This issue was brought up. I think this settles it, at least as far as they need to know. And I have it for signatures. Thank you. All set?
Yes.
All right. Rob, you all set with it?
Yep.
All right. I'll make the motion for the board to accept this letter to the finance department, the treasurer, to to ensure that this employee's coverage is accurate and as approved. Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and second.
What's that?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. And I'll sign. This is the permanent copy. Okay. .gov email addresses. We, as you know, we were subject to a phishing attack It cost us a couple of $1,000. And one of the reasons, or one of the preventatives to that is that one of the things that we've been doing for a long time is using email addresses that are personal email addresses as opposed to a government or town email address that has more protection and filters. We have an opportunity to get the .gov extension email addresses for the town. And what this will do is it's filtered through the federal government. So things like these attacks may have another level of being filtered out. It's not going to be 100%. Nothing is. If you click on the wrong thing, bad things are going to happen. However, this is one step we can take to try and insulate our infrastructure. And I will tell you, after the last one, our insurance company refused to pay return the money to us because we didn't have certain steps in place. This is one of them. Did this go in the packets, Connie, this .gov thing?
The letter is in the packet.
All right. So this is part of the first steps to securing the infrastructure. This we're working towards getting better systems, better prepared, and some training as part of it. So this is step one. Is there any questions about it? Essentially what will happen is everybody that's deemed, that it's deemed necessary to have an email address, Townshend.gov, will get one.
That include the select board.
That includes the select board. And everything that filters through those addresses is kind of protected. It's not 100% protected, like I said, but it will give us another layer of protection. Steve, you just need to decide how many of your guys you think that it's even necessary for.
One.
Just one, okay. But this is how we can help move things forward.
It's my understanding that it does not cost the town anything to get these .gov emails, but there's a couple of steps that we have to go through, and one of them is that the highest authorities, which is the select board, agrees to follow the regulations.
The regulations for government businesses are pretty clear. If somebody leaves, you got to take them down within a couple of days. I think it's within 15 days. I can't remember exactly what it was. You know, if there's inappropriate, or if it's flagged for inappropriate behavior, that you address that, and either it's straightened out or the person is suspended from use, that type of thing. So.
Will these be through a Microsoft Outlook?
I think that was what we were talking about. Yeah, I think that was what we were talking about. We've still got to get in and talk with Aaron again, because we had questions that needed to be answered before we started moving forward. Okay.
The only other thing to decide is who's the technical contract and who's the security support contact. I put in Europa IT, but we would just have to decide definitively what that would be.
Yeah. My feeling of that is we just leave it where it's been. I mean,
And what is that?
that Europa is taking care of technical issues,
Right.
and they're taking care of security support, which is what they've been doing right along.
And that's it?
And that's it, yeah. It will be under the board's control as far as putting people on, taking people off, that type of thing. This is just, if we have an issue like we had before, they will get involved and they will scan the system. And anyway. Is there anything further? All right, I'd entertain a motion that we enter into this agreement to get a .gov domain registration with the federal government.
So moved. Second.
Is there any further discussion? Hearing none. The only other question is they want a single person to sign it. Is it all right with the board that I sign it?
Yes.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. 5-0. Okay, Connie, that's done. All right, the next thing we have is, and I think it's the last thing, is the Historical Society would like to use the building November 6th from 2:30 to 3:30 for their, it looks like their annual meeting. Yeah, for their meeting. Entertain a motion for approval of the Historical Society using the building.
You waiving the fee?
We usually do. Yeah,
So moved.
Second.
all right. Any further discussion? Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All right. And now, unless there's anything else anybody has,
John, did you have anything?
No, I'm okay. Are we good with the radar signs, everything's resolved, there are questions?
the what?
The radar signs?
We haven't heard back from the company as to whether they can shut that off.
Okay, they haven't gotten back.
Nope.
What were you shutting off on?
The
Well, the
strobe
signs.
and the slow down message. The state has said that those things are allowed on the signs. So
There's a-
other towns get these signs and then disable those two features.
So they can't have the strobing light on them.
Right. So I called the company just to make sure you can disable those features, and I haven't heard back from them.
Okay. Anything else? All right. Entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved. Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. 5-0.